The sex abuse scandal involving the Catholic Diocese of Buffalo isn't just about priests and nuns. News 4 Investigates has obtained an internal list of individuals, both living and dead, that includes priests and nuns, but also former employees and affiliates of the diocese at one time.
As News 4's LMoretti reports, now that the FBI has launched a probe, some local attorneys believe that statutes that target organized crime should now be explored.
They want secrecy.
Prominent Boston-based attorney Mitchell Garabedian represents nearly 40 accusers with claims against the Diocese of Buffalo, along with whistleblower Siobhan O'Connor, who recently went public. We ask him about the internal list of names obtained by News 4 Investigates.
If a person was named as a perpetrator and that claim was substantiated in order to protect other victims, potential victims, and the safety of children, and help victims heal, they would release those names.
The list of names, which has not been released to the public, comes from a diocesan review board agenda from September. It includes around 24 names of active and deceased priests and others who are or were affiliated with the diocese in some capacity. The accusations center around some form of inappropriate contact with a minor or an adult. Since we obtained the list, 2 names have been released. One is Father John Sardina, who has been placed on administrative leave. Sardina, who is retired, is accused of abusing a young girl 5 decades ago. He denies the allegations. And just on Saturday, the diocese placed Father Ronald Sajek on administrative leave. He's accused of abuse before he was a priest. The diocese released his name after News 4 made inquiries for this story.
People have to start being held accountable.
Attorney Kevin Stocker represents several clergy abuse accusers and whistleblowers. He believes the current number of cases in Buffalo is just the tip of the iceberg.
When the problem is so severe and so extensive for such a long period of time, it's going to take state, federal resources.
But according to the diocese, while the review board was presented with a list of names on the agenda obtained by News 4 Investigates, the facts and circumstances of those claims haven't been examined, and the credibility of the accusations has not been determined. The diocese won't say what they plan to do with non-clergy accused of sexual abuse. We're still waiting for a response. Keep in mind, this list includes names of former affiliates who are not priests and nuns. News 4 Investigates has decided not to disclose the names yet because we have not reached all the accusers or their attorneys. In the meantime, we're still in the process of examining the list. But here's what we can tell you. Many of the priests are deceased. In one of the allegations against an active priest, News 4 Investigates could not obtain any significant details about the claim and have not been able to reach the victim. The growing tally of clergy, order priests, and people who are or were affiliated with the diocese and are accused of some form of inappropriate contact with a minor or an adult now exceeds 100. That's based from the list of names obtained by WIVB, other clergy named by the diocese in March, and in other media reports. Bishop Richard Malone was asked about releasing more names during an exclusive interview last month with News 4's Don Postles.
We're ready to add new names. We're getting very close. I just asked our attorneys the other day, because they work on this with us too, to make sure we have all the facts. And I am committed to adding more names. Absolutely.
Like Kevin Stocker, Buffalo attorney Barry Covert, who also represents an accuser, welcomes the FBI's recent involvement in probing the church's sex abuse scandal. Both lawyers urge federal prosecutors to consider using statutes that target organized crime, such as the mob or violent law-breaking biker gangs.
We have what's called legally a continuing course of criminal conduct that allegedly occurred here. And that can bring old acts to within the statute of limitations. They have protected those priests. They have swept it under the rug. And that has all the hallmarks of a traditional criminal organization.
Attorney Kevin Stocker, raised a Catholic and whose kids attend Catholic school, says it's hard to measure the impact because every case is different.
When you think about what some of these people who are now adults went through and how it's affected them, and you have grown men sobbing in front of you, it's disturbing.
Attorney Mitchell Garabedian is taking direct aim at how the Diocese of Buffalo is handling the scandal.
How can they be respected? How can they be looked up to when they're giving sermons about kindness and love and understanding in children? How can they be believed?
Now, we've been seeking a response from the diocese for weeks about the internal list that was presented to the review board back in September. And only hours ago, the names of additional priests were released in a televised news conference. 7 of the newly released names are on the internal review board list obtained by News 4. We have now published those 7 names, along with the other names released today. And you can see those names on WIVB.com. Now, keep in mind, there are still about a dozen names on the internal list that we have in our possession, and they're not just priests.
Now, this was touched on today in the news conference a little bit. Does the diocese yet have a policy about lay people who were employed at one time or still are employed by the diocese?
That's one of the things that we've been asking about and asking about and asking about for weeks now. Bishop Malone addressing that today during the news conference. He was asked about it from Jen Schatz from News 4 asked him about that. And he said that essentially there are no procedures in place to deal with, for example, former employees accused of abuse. The bishop's saying today that they're thinking all of that through, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Said they're working on it.
They are working on it. That's the impression he left with us this afternoon.
Yes.
So. All right. Thank you, Lou.
Okay.
You can watch our complete coverage surrounding the Buffalo Catholic Diocese, including Bishop Malone's news conference earlier today, on our News 4 app and on WIVB.com. We will continue to follow this as new developments unfold.
Still to come, scammers in Niagara County are looking to steal your credit card information as you gas up. Civil attorneys who defend priests accused of sexual abuse do not have any standing when it comes to proceedings run by the Catholic Church.
That is the interpretation of one attorney who's hearing directly from the Archbishop of Boston. The News 4 Investigates team has been looking into the process and procedures of canon law. News 4's Luke Moretti has the very latest.
There are priests who have been placed on administrative leave and have been so for months.
Reverend Samuel Vinay is among the priests suspended in the wake of sexual abuse allegations. In Vinay's case, the claims are decades old and something he strongly denies.
If I'm guilty of anything, it's because I try to reach out and help people.
Vinay, who's 76 years old, has been retired for about a decade. He desperately wants to perform priestly duties, but he cannot while on suspension.
It's been 8 months. We still don't have a copy of the charges from anybody who's accused Father Sam.
Attorney Mike Taheri represents Vinay, who was placed on administrative leave in April. The allegations against him were substantiated in June. The case awaits a final determination by the Vatican. Taheri is critical of the process and procedures used by the Diocese of Buffalo, specifically Bishop Richard Malone, in the way accused priests are handled.
This bishop has treated those priests who have been placed on administrative leave like lepers.
Taheri even wrote to Cardinal Sean O'Malley, the Archbishop of Boston, and the Pope's chief advisor on sexual abuse. In a letter to Taheri in September, O'Malley writes that he's been advised that it would not be appropriate to engage in a review of process from Father Vinay's case while it is ongoing. Instead, O'Malley sent Taheri's case materials to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops National Review Board and to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith for consideration. Those defense materials include passing a polygraph test and a psychological assessment that failed to reveal any indication that Vinay engaged in sexual abuse.
Our material is being seriously considered, and we hope that it's reviewed and any changes that Bishop Malone incorporates include some of our suggestions.
Here's Bishop Malone during a televised news conference last month.
Please know that we have done much to protect the victims and the accused.
Pray for us sinners now.
But when it comes to accused priests like Sam Vinay, the bishop and the diocese need to do a better job of providing basic due process protections, according to Taheri.
We're confident he's going to be reinstated. It's just not going to happen in this diocese. The procedures in place don't allow it.
Vinay argues that he's given 40 years of his life to the Catholic faith and can't even get a phone call or have a sit-down with the bishop about his case.
I think his total focus is on taking care of the kids who have made accusations, that they get due process.
Bishop Malone even alluded to concerns raised during his private meeting with priests last month.
There was a lot of concern among them for how accused priests are treated, and that it can take a long time, sometimes longer than we like, for those cases to be resolved and things like that.
And there's something else that struck Mike Taheri about the letter he received from Cardinal O'Malley. It involves what canonists and civil lawyers have advised him on the church's canon law. O'Malley writes, any proposals concerning canonical process and procedure in the Diocese of Buffalo are matters of canon law, not civil law. My advisors have also noted that a civil lawyer who is not accredited in canon law may not represent an accused cleric in canonical proceedings. Taheri, like many of the lawyers handling accused priests in the Diocese of Buffalo, is a civil lawyer.
That's never been raised before.
And it's something Taheri now wishes he was told by the diocese months ago when he took on Vinay as a client.
If they want us to use canonical counsel, it would be nice if the bishop made those arrangements. So reinstate all the priests he's placed on administrative leave. Let's use Cardinal O'Malley's letter that said they need canonical counsel, and let the bishop pay for it.
In August, News 4 Investigates reported on how the diocese does recommend that accused priests hire a civil or canonical lawyer, but they don't help furnish one or pay for the services. What's more, a handbook on canonical processes states that if a priest is invited to participate in the preliminary investigation, which happens to some degree in the Buffalo Diocese, then it is strongly urged that he be provided the assistance of canonical counsel.
Let's reinstate Father Vinay. Let's have the bishop assign him a canonical lawyer at their expense, and let the process begin, and let's get it right. We would love to have that process.
In a prepared statement, the Diocese of Buffalo says it's up to the priest to engage a canon lawyer if he wishes, and that the diocese is not required to and does not provide for either civil or canonical counsel. Additionally, the diocese states that a priest must have a canon lawyer once the matter enters formal canonical proceedings. Luke Moretti, News 4.